Once again, guys, thanks for coming. My name's James Pastor, Program Director here at Clay Art Center. Like I said, I'm broadcasting from the Clay Art Center shop behind me. And before we get started, I would like to tell everybody a little bit about Clay Art Center. If you're not familiar, I think a bunch of you are, but those of you who are new, we are a community ceramic center located in Port Chester, New York. So that is in the Westchester, New York area. That's north of Manhattan. So very, very beautiful area. We've been here for 60 plus years, nonprofit, and here you're looking at the outside of our building and our mission statement. And our mission is at the heart of our programming that we do. We believe strongly that the arts can touch lives, enrich lives through ceramics. And we really try as hard as possible to expose our community and enrich the ceramic community as a whole through our educational offerings, our exhibitions, our shop. Surely we are in a weird time right now, and our shop and our gallery are closed, but the rest of our facility is opening up, where I'm happy to say. So we are about to begin open studios and get our studios up and running. So we do have a very robust residency program here at Clay Art Center, which we're going to hear a lot about today. We also have youth and adult programming, like I said, gallery, shop, along with a huge group of Clay Art Center artists who have private and shared spaces here at Clay Art Center where they make their work. So we're very happy to be here. Thank you all who were able to donate to today's webinar as well. We take a lot of pride in offering these webinars free of charge, and those of you who do have the means to donate, we very much appreciate that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nikki Lau here with us this afternoon. Hi, Nikki, nice to see you. So Nikki is, she's coming from, born and raised in San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. Nikki has her MFA from Penn State University, and Nikki was a resident here at the Clay Art Center between year 2018, 2019. So Nikki's gonna share all kinds of artist opportunities with us, and I'm very excited to hear what you have to share, Nikki. So I'll hand it over to you.
Great. So I'm gonna just talk straight through the presentation, and then I'll leave questions at the end, because I can definitely get sidetracked really easily. Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and then thank you so much to the Clay Art Center for hosting me. I really appreciate it. Okay, can everyone see that?
Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay, so my talk is Navigating Arts, Residencies, and Opportunities. Oh. James, the slide is not moving. Oh, there we go, never mind, we're good. Okay, so hello, I'm Nikki Lau. Thank you for joining me today. I have my information on the bottom, and then I'm gonna have a final slide at the end, so if you have any questions or wanna reach me, I'll have that up for you. This discussion will cover resources to find shows and residencies, how to decide on where to apply, catering your application, and then what happens if you get it. So that is me in all my glory at the Clay Art Center. I was a resident from 2018 to 2019. So why am I doing this presentation? Well, I've been working in ceramics for 14 years. I've learned everything through trial and error. So I'm hoping whatever I've learned from that process, you can get something out of that. I've had 2 residencies under my belt. So the first one was at the Clay Art Center, and then the second one was this year at the Armory Art Center. I've been offered 2 short-term residencies, and the year that I applied for the Armory, I applied to 9 residencies and academic opportunities for teaching. I heard back from 6, so that means I had interviews with 6 of them, and I got offered 5. So to me, it is a numbers game, and it's also just really working with the odds. I average about 4 to 5 shows a year. I generally leave a loose goal of at least 1 show a year. And then for this talk, I created it because I wished that someone had told me this exact talk when I was just starting out. I think as much as I can demystify the art world and really make it as accessible as possible, that's my goal. So my models for applications are apply until you die. So that's pretty extreme, but I had this really good visiting artist that came through Penn State. She told me that she had applied to Skowhegan, which is this residency, I believe it's in Maine. Anyways, it's pretty prestigious. But she told me she applied for 7 years in a row, and by the 8th year, she finally got it. And her motto was apply until you die. My second motto is failure is data collection. I've learned a lot just from trying things, failing, learning what I did wrong, and then trying it again, and usually finding success. Whether you get an offer or not, thank the person for their time and consideration. I think this is just good etiquette in general. And if you don't get it, ask how you can improve your application. It leaves a good impression, and if you're lucky enough to get a response, then you can try again next time. I've actually done this, and for a few residencies that I didn't get and a few shows that I applied for, and moving into the future, I feel like I have a better sense of what work would actually better fit both of those applications. How to find residencies and shows. So this slide will pop up a few times, so definitely it applies for both since I'm covering both. I'm going to try to work through talking about shows as efficiently as possible because I think residencies definitely have the most to talk about. So email chains, I actually found out about the CAC Art Center because I was, for the residency program, because I was a work exchange at the Clay Studio in Philadelphia. And I just happened to get an email that they were looking for applications. So I just sent it in and I got it, which was pretty amazing. Antica is such an amazing resource. There's so many tables to walk through and talk to people, and a lot of them are also offering shows. Ceramics Monthly, there's usually a call for art. There's also listings for shows and residency opportunities. Facebook, I follow Critical Craft Forum. That's one of my favorites to see opportunities. Instagram, I follow a lot of galleries and art centers, so I get to see what shows are popping up, and then just kind of deep dive into their websites and seeing when they have call for arts. Word of mouth, I feel like enough people have told me about things. Like I recently made a butter dish and I posted it on Instagram, and someone just said, hey, you should apply to this butter dish. It was just very random. It was like, apply to this butter dish art show that's coming up. So that's in the works too. Again, art centers, academia is an interesting one because they all have, most of them have some form of an art gallery. So they do a lot of call for art. This is great if you do installation work because it's such a big gallery space. And yeah, you can kind of just free reign. You don't have to worry so much about too much red tape about having access to space. And then my favorite is to find your favorite artists and look at their resumes. Most of them are posted on their websites. So they'll tell you like what shows they've done or what residencies they've done. All right, shows. Why do it? Why share your art? If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around, does it make a sound? If you make art and no one sees it, is it still communicating? So yeah, that's what I think about when I find myself coming up against resistance to wanting to show my art, or I just really want to hide it away because I'm just satisfied that I made it already. But art is communication and connection. there's not one area of our lives that isn't touched by art. Art is like food. It's there to nourish you and the audience. Artists are the culture makers. We observe, reflect, and contribute to how we define society. We challenge hearts and minds. For me now more than ever with the quarantine, I have been thinking a lot about how important art is. Even when I see it on social media, like, because that is the main way that we can see it now, or if you're lucky enough to have access to a gallery and you can go and see that. Yeah, we need visual culture. We need any kind of art, really. We need it to feel fulfilled in our lives. And frankly, I've binge watched so much Netflix and Hulu, and just I'm thinking even podcasts, like there's so many areas of our lives that are keeping us sane right now because of art. Tips on applying for shows. Share everything. So when I was a resident at the CAC Artist Center, Brandon, the former studio manager, was really generous in like sharing all these different show opportunities, and he was really encouraging. He's told all the residents to apply for Beyond the Brickyard, and I'm really good at imposter syndrome, so I almost talked myself out of it. But if you're lucky enough to have a group of people, and thankfully all the residents and Brandon encouraged me to apply, and this is the piece that got in. It's a porcelain sewing machine. Funny backstory on this piece, I actually applied with this piece, but it was in Philadelphia. I left it at the clay studio, and thankfully someone had actually saved it for me on their shelf, so it was nice and protected. But I found out that I got into the show the day that I was about to leave Philadelphia, so I had to cancel my bus ticket, run to the clay studio, and beg them to let me use their packing area to ship it out. So it's really good if you have connections and to maintain your good relationships. And yeah, if you're lucky enough, while I was in Philly, I actually had a all-women's artist collective called the Mini Boyfriend Club, and it was just an amazing network of people that just supported each other. We created shows together. We promoted each other. I would say if you can get together a group of people who enjoy sharing as much information as possible. I did this a lot with the residents while I was at the Armory. We always found like some kind of show to apply to or some kind of residency to apply to, and we just shared everything. Network. So when I was at Antica, and it was the Pittsburgh Antica, I had a alumni show with Penn State. And I really encourage you to keep those networks going. I'm very lucky that I left a good impression at Penn State, and I just have a lot of love for it. Yeah, so I was there, and my friend Roberta Lugo put together a meetup group for people of color, and I almost didn't go because it was 10 a.m. It's pretty early in the morning. But I managed to convince myself to go, and thank God I did, because I put my name on some random email list that was thankfully at the time curated by or organized by Isaac Scott, and he managed to create a proposal and curate the show Human Nature. And the only reason I got into that is because I showed up to that meeting, or to that network. And yeah, so that's how I was able to get this piece in the following year for Antica, Minneapolis. Maintain connections. So this is Small Favors at the Clay Studio. It's one of my favorite shows to do. You make a piece that fits into a 4x4 box. I've done this show for about 4 years now. I remember the first 2 years as a work exchange, I had to pay for it, and I was like not exactly thrilled about that, but it wasn't expensive. It was like 10 bucks. And then like after I created enough good work while I was doing those shows, the last 2 years have been just offered to me, so I haven't had to pay for it. But that is one connection I really want to keep maintaining, because I have a lot of love for the clay studio. Celebrate the fruits of your labor. So I think it is, I'm probably the worst at this, but I also think it's important. If you share with people all of the good things, including the shows that you get, residencies that you have, you're essentially putting out this good juju into the world. And I really do believe that when you do that, you manifest more shows in the future. So share everything, celebrate what you're doing. I think it also shows other people that you're serious too about showing your work. And so they're more likely to recommend you to other shows because they remember your work. Oh, and this show's from the Resident Artist show at the end of the year at the CAC Artist Center. Apply and let the fates decide. So this was the Antica annual juried exhibition. This was probably at the very tail end when I was just about to move to Florida because I got the residency at the Armory. And I almost didn't do it, but I just felt like, oh, what the hell, why not? I kind of had that same mindset that I went into when I did it for Beyond the Brickyard. But yeah, so I applied pretty last minute. I didn't 100% think that these pieces worked with the theme, but I knew I could write something that would get it pretty close. And usually it's up to the juror anyways, so I managed to get both of these pieces in, and thank God I did, because when I shipped it, the fortune cookie broke in the mail, so during shipment. So at least I had one piece in, and it feels good because I'm still pretty up and coming, I'm pretty emerging, and it was amazing to see my name in a catalog and my work next to some pretty famous artists. So yeah, just try. You never know what's going to happen. If you get accepted and you need to ship work, double box. I just highly recommend that. Double box everything. And then leave detailed instructions. A lot of the time, like, they're looking at an image, but they also have so much work to process through. So as much detailed information as you can leave, the better. And then this trick I got from Julia Galloway, but send chocolates with a nice note. So she puts chocolate into every single one of her pots that she ships out. So whoever is unwrapping it, they get a piece of chocolate at the end. I think whoever you're giving your work to, it is a nice reward system, but it's also showing that you appreciate like the labor of love that they're putting into taking care of your work. Residencies, why do it? It's a gift of time to focus and explore your work, your art, a place for networking and building opportunities, an opportunity for a show, building community, teaching experience, resources, so like a facility, having an area to photograph work, a knowledge base to the ins and outs of how an art organization can run, legacy, you're a part of an alumni of past residents, and yeah, it's just a great reason to move somewhere new. I mean, I always wanted to live pretty close to New York, so that was pretty great. And I also really wanted to live in a tropical environment, so Florida was perfect. How to decide on where to apply. So same thing, same resources. I will say that what worked for me the most was I used Ceramics Monthly. It's got a really nice breakdown on the back section of which residencies offer housing, stipends, studios, how much you have to pay, if you don't have to pay, if there's teaching experience. They give you a really nice breakdown of what they offer. So I highly recommend that if you're looking for residencies, specifically in ceramics. And then if you can, and you can get your act together, and if you're not me, because I definitely didn't do it until recently, but if you can get most of your applications in before you go to Antica, if you are going to Antica that year, people can actually see your application, and then when you go to the tables, because there's a bunch of tables at Antica with each place that you've applied to, usually, and you can actually make a one-on-one connection. So for me, I had a really great connection when I was talking to the Armory. I was talking to one of the residents, and I just remember it was this really, like, I felt really connected, and I remember we just had this really awesome rapport where it was like, beep, beep, bop, beep, beep, bop, beep, beep, bop. I like you, you like me, great. But yeah, I remember just feeling so good, and I think that connection probably helped me in a lot of ways, because I think that resident actually like went to bat for me and really encouraged them to look at my application and really consider me, because at the end of the day, they do want to hang out with you as a person too. The questions to ask yourself: do you want a short or long-term residency? Do you want a year, a couple months, or a few weeks? What will you get out of the residency? Is it well known? Will there be a show at the end? Can you have work in the shop? Teaching experience? Will it pay for Antica? Will it help you on the next step in your career? So hypothetically, so the CAC Art Center is really good for if you want to stay a second year. They really help you if you're a BFA and you're trying to get an MFA. They help you really tailor your and build your resume, like your resume, but also your portfolio. They really prep you for that. Technical knowledge of how a studio / art organization runs. Yeah, so you just learn the ins and outs. Yeah, I've learned a lot just on how to set up a show and advertising. A chance for community. So make a lot of connections with staff and students, past residents, and peers. I can't tell you how many times I've had Taco Tuesdays with most of the staff, or when I was in Florida at the Armory, we had a lot of pho, so that was nice. There's almost, if you're in a ceramic studio, there's almost always food involved, so it's the best. And then a facility and like studio space. Like for me, I knew that the CAC Art Center had really big kilns, so it was pretty easy to make some 5-foot food dogs, which felt great. And then just having a studio space is really expensive. So if there is a place that offers it to you, I highly recommend taking it. And then a stipend, that stipend really does help. It really offsets a lot of costs, even if you're paying for clay or something like that. Housing, some of them do offer housing, which is really amazing. I'll say I came across one residency that even offered dental, which kind of blew my mind. But really at the end of the day, it's like time for you to make your work without stressing too much about how you're gonna survive on the day-to-day. Like when your finances are covered and the only thing you have to worry about is making art, it's an incredible feeling. What is your budget? So application fees can add up. Thankfully, some are free. Just decide how much you are willing to spend. I will say it is a numbers game, so the more you apply to, the higher your chances are. And then, do you want to live there? Is the residency in the middle of nowhere? Is it a major city? Is it just outside of a major city? Is the climate something you can imagine living in? So for me, I'm going to be really honest. There are parts of the South that I will not live in because as a woman of color, I'm definitely scared for my life. I also admittedly don't like snow that much, so I have to be very selective about where I go. And then what's the housing market and the cost of living? I mean, if you're making money, but most of your money is going to rent, that's also an issue too. So you have to like weigh the pros and cons of what works for you. How will this help you? So in your career, can you stay after the residency and set down roots? I know a lot of people do that. A lot of people stay after and teach. A launching point to your next residency. So that was me. I was definitely on a residency train. I'm starting to slow down now. But yeah, that's kind of where I was at. I will say now it's more about focusing on making work and yeah, just seeing what's next. I'm more focused on creating roots right now. Or yeah, maybe it leads into a job. Who knows? Some people just stay after they get hired. And potential future talks. So this one that I'm doing right now. I'm really glad that I kept my connections with the Clay Art Center because I get to do a talk like this, which I felt was really important and informative. And then there's workshops like Resident Roll Call, which they have at the Clay Art Center. And I'm gonna shamelessly plug myself into this. If you ever want me to do Resident Roll Call, I would love to do it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Catering your application. Okay, so the main requirements for most residency applications, portfolio, image lists, letter of intent, artist statement, your CV and resume, and then sometimes they ask for this, but not always. It's just nice to have in your arsenal. But your bio and a sample syllabus of what you would offer for teaching. The most important on this list is the portfolio. It's your first impression. And really, they just want to see what kind of quality of work you have, what you have to offer. It's just your first impression. And if you're, depending on where you are applying, there's some places that it's going to be like 30 artists apply, or they'll get 30 applications. It could be 50 applications. It could be 150 applications. So whatever you're applying with, something about what you're applying with has to be so unique that it stands out from everybody else's. And then your image list, you're gonna, they're definitely, it's there to mostly see like what scale you work in and what materials you like to use. And then even like with titles, it shows how well you've thought about the connection of your work to the titles. Letter of intent. Once you get to letter intent and artist statement, that's really when they're really like, they're narrowing you down into that top 5 category. So you have to have something that really stands out. So like for an artist statement, it just really enhances the portfolio. So it's the cherry on top of that sundae. So it tells people like, hey, this person has thought out an entire body of work, and their artist statement just ties that with a nice pretty ribbon on top. So being able to talk about your work is really important. And then they'll look at your CV and resume because they want to see how much teaching experience you have and what you have to offer. I know with the Clay Art Center, they were really looking for teaching experience, and I've had a pretty decent range from like adult students, academic teaching while I was in grad school, and then I've worked with a lot with youth from different ages. So it's all about what you have to offer. And then let me go into the next slide. So tips on artist statements and letters of intent. You want to define the unique thing that you and only you can offer that residency. So yeah, if you're a hand builder or a wheel thrower, that's a great start. It could also be like, maybe if you're a wheel thrower, you're really good at teaching altered forms. Or in my case, I know my superpower is that I have a really diverse portfolio as far as like materials and just having a mixed media process. So for me, I can teach a bunch of things. I can teach sculpture, I can teach functional work. I'm pretty versatile when it comes to that, and I can do some pretty interesting content too. So I can offer different classes that may not exist currently. Very important, have someone else edit it, because when you read it over and over again and then you have screen fatigue, you just don't even know what you've made anymore. And then this one's really embarrassing, but it works. you got to read it out loud. You have to read it so loud that you can actually imagine being another person reading it, and that's as close as I can think of as to like imagining a complete stranger trying to figure out what you're trying to say. Because it might make perfect sense in our mind, but the second we read it out loud, you can actually hear how you sound. Make it as easily understandable as possible while still making a unique connection. So for me, I like the body of work that I applied with last year was primarily like about Chinatown, and not everyone has access to Chinatown, but they do have an understanding of food and relating to food. So that's sort of where I made those connections. And yeah, at times if you've been blessed enough to travel, then you know what it feels like to be a tourist. So that's sort of the angle that I really played into. And then research where you're applying and make it personal to that place. So for me, I definitely cater my my letter of intent based on the place, and you can kind of just scour the website. You could also talk, I mean, if you're at Antica, then you can actually talk to them directly too. But yeah, being able to say like, hey, I see that community arts is really important to you. I have a lot of experience with community arts. This is what I can offer. I've done outdoor wheel throwing classes or like workshops and demos so people can feel drawn in and they can have their first experience with clay. So that's something that I can offer. Format for letter of intent. You want to state why you're applying. What do you have to offer? Be specific. Yeah, what do you hope to get out of the experience? Name something specific. So example, the programming that you want to work/do. I definitely offered, when I was at the Armory, I told them I wanted to do something related to food justice, and I managed to have a show in the gallery while also simultaneously hosting a meal, which I know the CAC Art Center does. They host meals in the gallery. So it was fun to actually host my own meal. And I invited a vegan chef that works sustainably, and she got a bunch of vegetables that she sourced from a local urban farm when I was in West Palm Beach in Florida. So that was a really amazing experience, and I'm really glad I got to do it. And honestly, it was the first time that happened at the gallery. No one had ever done that before. So that is the unique thing that I had to offer. And then, yeah, understatement summarizing how you being there will be mutually beneficial. At the end of the day, it is like both you as the artist and the organization that you're working with, that you're doing the residency at, want to know what's the reciprocity to your relationship. Okay, portfolio. This one is so critical. I have to say, like, what I learned about portfolios was when I was an undergrad, and University of Washington actually went through each image, and they talked about how the strengths of each image, and they showed us their top 50 students that applied to grad school there. So I used the same principles, and I kind of wish that more academic places did this, but there's definitely a logic to it, and there's definitely a sequencing to it, and there's things that people are looking for that they don't tell you about. So the first image you choose is your first impression. So it should be pretty strong. For me, this is the one that I applied with last year. I picked something that showed my ability to sculpt faces. And I think there is a nice incorporation of like human gesture within this animal figure. And there's a lot of emotion like just wrapped up in the eyes and the gestures of the mouths. And then it showcases my hand building experience and then my ability to layer work. But I think it's like visually dynamic enough where it sets something in your mind where you're like, who is this person? They're so weird. Which that could be the first impression you want. I don't know what impression you actually want to leave, but that's usually my strategy is if it's weird, you'll probably remember me. And then the next thing I think about is developing some cohesive themes. And I also think about color too. So I don't put, like, if it's two green things, I don't put them next to each other. I kind of space it out. If it's like fruits, I'll space that out. And I'll put them in clusters with other fruits, or I'll put the vegetables next to each other. And they're all like held within this like terracotta box. So they all stay within the same theme, but they all use like a different color palette. So your eyes move through, and then there's different heights and textures that were really important for me to develop. So that's sort of what I was thinking about when I was creating this. And then somewhere in the middle, you want to grab some attention. I like the tension between the two Peking ducks just staring at each other. I think that's like, yeah, again, like the fish, it's just so weird. But it also breaks up the color palette too as you're moving along. And then these are my ceramic neon signs. And I had about 5 of these. But yeah, having multiple options to choose from. So I had 5 of these. Some applications, I would show maybe like 3. And then, yeah, as you saw in the earlier slides, I had the fortune cookie and the YMCA sign. So those were the 5 that I got to choose from. There are some applications where you're gonna have like 10 images to put in. Some of them last for 15, some of them last for 20. You want to put your strongest work that also shows a variety of what you can do. So yeah, having multiple options to choose from, like, really, it's just relieving. And then you start creating these subcategories. So you create like, this is a set of 10 of my strongest work. This is a set of 15 of my strongest work. This is a set of 20 of my strongest work. And then honestly, you can bang out a lot of applications pretty quickly once you have the formula down. And then I tried to do ascension from like most simple forms to most complicated. And then, yeah, and then all varying in different sizes. At the very end, to leave an impression, because whoever is looking at this, they've looked through 30 different applicants. That's, if you're lucky, like 10 slides each. So then that's still 300 images that are going through this person's mind. So you have to have something that's so unique and so like something that says something about you, because you're communicating, you're saying something about what you believe the world looks like, or what you want it to look like, or whatever you do with your art practice, you're saying your statement. So whatever that is, try to leave that statement like really powerful and resonating with that person at the end. Okay, so what happens if you get it? Well, find the most joyful person you know and jump together in excitement. So this is Zoe Scheller, and she was the first person I went to when I found out that I got into the Armory Art Center. I remember I was eating lunch, scrolling through my emails, and I found out I got it, and I literally dropped what I was doing, ran downstairs because I knew she was loading the gas kiln, and I told her, and she grabbed my hands, and we just jumped up and down and squealed really loudly, and I'm pretty sure Brandon thought we were nuts, but it was awesome. So that's what I highly recommend. It just feels great. And I'll be honest, like at that particular time, I was waiting for another residency at the Lux Art Center, and I wasn't particularly, it was the best offer I had gotten so far besides waiting for a response from the Armory. So I was like trying to imagine my life in the snow, and I wasn't that excited about it. But the second I found out, Zoe was the person that I went to jump up and down. Okay. So you've managed to dazzle a potential residency with your portfolio and charmed your way through the interview process, and you were lucky enough to get some offers. How do you decide? Research, research, research. Ask current and former residents what their experience was like. Revisit reasons for why you picked the place. Make pro-con lists. Check your moving budget. And then really at the end of the day, go with your gut. I had a really good feeling when I talked to Zoe about the Clay Art Center. I had a great feeling when I was talking to the resident at the Armory. So just go with your gut. I think some part of you knows what will be a best fit for you. But really, sometimes it's pretty easy to decide. I did not want to live in the snow in Nebraska, and I was so ready for a tropical climate and living in paradise. And really, residencies are just, what you get out of it is friendship, and it's just an amazing place to build community. And you get to make art. You get to show the world what you do. You get to create the world you want to live in, and you get to explore new ideas that you haven't made before. So thank you so much. I highly recommend residencies and shows. I left my website on there, my Instagram. So I have 2 Instagrams. One of them is just my life. So that's lau.nikki. And Little Lau Shop is my current new work that I've been producing. I've been focusing more on functional work. So I'm starting to really dig my heels into that. And then I have my email at the very bottom. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Nikki. That was wonderful.